I am Jacob Howard with FPV Unlocked here, and I have Dave and Josh from the FPV Freedom Coalition. And today we are going to be talking about remote ID. So it dropped about a week and a half ago, and everybody's gone crazy. We've been waiting for a year to find out what we accomplished with our comments and what we did to protest remote ID when it first came out. And now we got to look at that. We got to actually see. And to kind of start it out, there's been two big, huge responses on this. And I think we've all seen this. We have the people who are like, wow, like they actually listened to us. They said in their remote ID ruling that they put out that, wow, like we had a ton of comments and we adjusted it because of those comments. And then we kind of have the other side of people are still very upset. They think remote ID shouldn't even exist in the first place. So there's a lot of confusion here about, did our comments and everything we did a protest. We wrote over 53,000 comments to the NPRM that they released last December. Last December. And what we want to know is, did we actually make an impact, and how did remote ID change, and what is actually the truth behind it? Is this something that we need to dread? Is this something that's going to kill the hobby? Is it something that's going to change drones in general, like forever? Like, how does this really affect us? And so kind of to kick it off, Josh, that's the big first question. What changed? Like, what changed that we talked about this just last week in our interview, what we were looking and hoping they would change, and what were some of those things that we actually accomplished, that the FAA actually listened to us and said, okay, guys, we heard you, we're going to change this. What were some of those things?
So some of the big changes were the ability to basically retrofit our existing drones, which is a big deal. We, in our initial response, posited that 100% of the current existing fleet would not apply or would not be able to fly under remote ID regulations as it was in the NPRM. So one of the major things that they did was add the capability of adding what's called a broadcast module. And that right there kind of, set the standard for being able to use our existing drones, be able to upgrade our fleets. And I say fleets, a lot of FPV pilots, myself included, have 10 plus drones, and so that's a big deal. The cool thing with the broadcast modules is that you don't have to buy one for every drone. You can, buy one, move it from drone to drone to drone. It's serial number specific to the broadcast module. So that's number one. Number two was registration. So originally in the NPRM, they wanted to push forward that recreational would have to register just like Part 107 pilots currently do, where every drone would have to be registered. Well, they did away with that. We're going to continue doing what we're doing now with the addition of having to input a serial number from that broadcast module or from your standard remote ID drone once those are created. Three was the FRIA sites. So no longer are FRIA sites going to be a 12-month window, and then they'll never accept another one after that. They've opened that up for an indefinite period of time, starting 18 months, 60 days plus 18 months once it's published to the register. So that opens up a lot of capabilities. And then I think the last one was a redefinition of, in the NPRM they called it amateur built. Now that it's called home built. So they did away. Well, I know, right?
I'm not an amateur. Right? I'm a professional home builder droner guy.
Exactly. So it's now called home built, and they did away with a lot of the specific, you have to build this much of it. It has to, 50% or more, you have to build 50% or more or anything like that. Now it's more so as long as you're doing some level of assembly on it, then it's considered a home built, which really opens up the path again. We were really worried for like companies like Get FPV or Pyro or RDQ, that they wouldn't be able to sell basically the ready to fly models. So now, as long as you're missing a major component, and the easiest one to do from our standpoint is going to be the receivers, because everybody flies a different transmitter, right? So
Mhm.
whether you're doing Crossfire, Tyrannus, or FlySky, or whatever the case may be, you're using a different receiver. And so as long as it's missing that major component, you select it somewhere else on the website. It all comes together, and then you solder your receiver in or plug it in or whatever you're going to do. You're
Mhm.
good to go, and it's going to be falling under that home built rule. So
Josh, may
uh
I build on that?
yeah, of course.
And my name is Dave Messina. I'm the president and CEO of FPV Freedom Coalition. Josh is the vice president, and we are an all volunteer, not for profit, advocating the FAA for your rights to fly FPV, and also working on education for safety and regulations. So, one of the items that Josh and I have been into this for a couple of years now, and so we're so deep into these regulations. One of the ones that he didn't mention was no networking, and this is a
Oh yes.
this is a big deal.
Mhm.
And so in the NPRM back last December, the FAA said, well, in order to fly remote ID, you're going to have both cell phone access via network, and you're going to have to transmit your location, Latlana, et cetera, all the messaging that is described in the rule. And they got rid of the networking part of that. That is a big deal for us. So right off the bat, that means that you don't have to have that type of technology on equipage or on the aircraft, and you also don't have to pay an additional cell phone fee. And if you don't happen to fly or have cell phone coverage, you can now fly. So this is a big deal. There are also implications in terms of a number of government agencies were interested in using that cell phone capability as part of a UTM, or unmanned traffic management. So now we're going to have to rethink that. So this is an example of the FAA really going to bat for us. So a positive aspect. So good list from Josh. And I know that he was thinking about network, a no network, and that's a big plus.
Yeah. Yeah, and honestly, I mean, when it first dropped and I was looking at it, that was like the two biggest things that I was really concerned about was the Wi-Fi. I'm like, I was flying North Idaho out in the mountains in Utah. There's no Wi-Fi and there's no cell phone signal to get Wi-Fi.
Mm.
Like I was just gonna be like, well, I guess it's over. I'm gonna have to fly it, if you know what I mean.
Right.
And like I was like, that right there is insane. And then all the extra money I'll have to pay for that. I'll have to have a data plan that can go everywhere with me and stuff just to fly my drone. And then the other one obviously was like having my information broadcasted.
Yeah.
And although I've heard that there have been that they're still going to broadcast some of the information, I have heard that it's going to be different than what they had originally said. Is that correct? That they're going to be broadcasting different information? It won't be as invasive?
So basically, what they're going to be broadcasting that's going to be open to the public is going to be this the serial number or session ID. And if you want to maintain an enhanced level of privacy, you probably want to go for the session ID. However, they are still going to be transmitting. If you're flying with there's two different set standards. So if you're flying with a broadcast module, which is most of what FPV pilots are going to be doing, you're going to be transmitting, number one, your takeoff location, so where the drone takes off. Okay. You're going to be transmitting the drone's lat, long, altitude, and velocity. The time mark, that's the other big one, so that each message is individually time marked, so they can track the progress of the drone in a certain direction, that kind of thing. So if you're flying a standard remote ID, however, which is going to be for the most part, those are going to be the drones that are coming from companies like DJI or Unique, or any of these other major drone manufacturers that are producing these aerial photography platforms. Those are going to be standard remote ID. They're going to need to be standard remote ID. And the big difference is instead of transmitting your takeoff location, it is actually transmitting the location of the operator. So that means there's a level of involvement, not only from the drone, but from the transmitter itself, that ecosystem that exists between them. So, I mean, a good example of this would be like the DJI ecosystem. So, you got the drone, you've got the transmitter. If you're flying DJI goggles, you've got the goggles, and they all work together. The transmitter, you can change, options on your goggles while you're flying. You can change options on the air unit while you're flying. So it's an ecosystem, and all that will work together to kind of, will need to work together to kind of fundamentally, broadcast all the messages.
And this is another reason why no networking is so good, because with the network, nothing is ever lost on the internet, right? So your location, your path, your lat line, it's all there forever.
Mhm.
So with no network, you're broadcasting Wi-Fi or Bluetooth, and whoever can pick that up can see it, and it's gone. It's not stored. It's not saved anywhere. It's
Mhm.
just a broadcast into the ether to say, in that radius of a kilometer-ish, hey, I'm here, and here's my lat line, and if you can hear me, here I am. And so you
Mhm.
can pick it up on a personal communication device, also known as a cell phone. So
Those things.
yes,
Yeah, so
those remotes for your life. Go ahead.
I think
Josh.
that the big thing is I mean, there's still a level of privacy concern. So,
Mhm.
we've all heard stories of pilots who have been assaulted or who have been threatened or their drone shot at, that kind of stuff. And this does not solve that in any way, shape, or form. And that's one of the,
Mhm.
bigger issues that we have with the remote ID. But at the same time, the session ID or your serial number, that stuff's going to be locked behind, the FAA registration site. And the only people who are going to have access to that, which would grant them your personal information, which would be your name, your address, your cell phone number or whatever, is going to be the FAA and law enforcement. So,
So Billy Bob down the road is not getting my phone number because I'm
no,
flying a drone next to him.
no. And he's
That
not getting your address,
Yeah.
So,
Well,
but the
yeah, that too.
important, yeah,
That too.
bigger
Well,
thing,
phone number. Come on, I'm sick of these spam calls.
right. So, the other caution I would throw out there, and this is actually something my mom brought up to me the other day. She's like, well, what if you turn on your drone in your house
Mhm.
and you're working on it, then you're broadcasting, and it's just like, yeah, that's a concern, right?
Yeah.
Because now, whoever's out there has that, that information. So,
Yeah.
just a word of caution once this stuff kind of rolls out, that's going to be a big deal. So privacy is still a big issue with remote ID.
And
One of the things that we kind of pushed for in our response was, an encrypted path towards this information where only law enforcement and the FAA and its, delegates would have information, that kind of, the technology to receive that information.